Across Asia, there are a lot of cyber crimes that are committed. There are a lot of scams that are ongoing. Deepfake is a global problem. We don't want the Philippines to be a contributor in those fields. We want to signal to the international community that if you're going to do business here, you're going to do it the right way.
Welcome to the Regulating AI podcast with Sanjay Puri. AI is changing the world faster than rules can keep up. So how do we protect people without killing progress? Each week, Sanjay brings you inside conversations with global leaders, policymakers, and innovators who are wrestling with that exact question. So if you're curious about the future of technology and how it's governed, you're in the right place. On our podcast today, we have Brian Poe, member of the House of Representatives of the Philippines. He currently serves as the chairman of Global AI Council in Philippines, where he leads efforts to develop ethical and inclusive AI frameworks in the region and combines roles in real-world governance with forward-looking technology policy. Recorded live at Davos.
We are live here in Davos, and we have an incredible guest with us. Regulating AI brings many different voices from around the world, trying to shape AI governance and AI policy in a responsible manner. I am here with our distinguished guest, Brian Poe from the Philippines, who's the architect of the AI Act out there. He's going to tell us a little bit about himself and about the bill that he has brought into Philippines, and also a little bit about what's happening in Philippines in terms of AI. Brian, welcome to the Regulating AI podcast.
Well, thank you for having me at Regulating AI, and it's a great honor and privilege to be able to talk about what we're doing in the Philippines.
Wonderful. So, Brian, give them a little brief background as to what is the AI ecosystem in Philippines like, because a lot of them might not know.
Right.
So we'll start with that, and then we'll go into some of the things that you've been working on.
Quick background on myself before I go into
Absolutely.
the ecosystem. So I'm a legislator from the Philippines, neophyte legislator. I serve as assistant majority floor leader in Congress. I sit on the Committee on Science and Technology, and so I filed the AI framework bill. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it speaks to what the ecosystem in the Philippines currently looks like. It's a young ecosystem. Handful of small AI businesses, startups, a lot of foreign companies looking in to see what they could potentially do in the Philippines. And the reason being, the Philippines has such a digitally native population, quick to adapt to the technologies that are available. I think the global average of users of AI technologies is at about 60% among young people, based on the last UNESCO survey. In the Philippines, very similar. It's about 62%. But the Philippines is a largely English-speaking population, so it makes it easier for a lot of AI companies to come in and set up and work with people. So right now we're at that stage where we're trying to build the foundation and the policies necessary to attract those businesses to come in. So if you're asking me what the ecosystem looks like now, it looks like a newborn baby. And for some people who might look at it and say, well, I guess I'm not going to invest there because, it's still very new. I'd like to remind them, as an emerging market, the potential is there. The rules are still being written. The companies are still in their seed funding stages. This is a prime time for you to come in and be a part of the growth of a digitally native 120 million Filipino population.
So, as you said, it's at a seed stage or baby stage, etc. Philippines is part of the ASEAN group.
Yes.
You have countries like Singapore who are really
very far advanced.
Very far, or I wouldn't say far, but they're pretty strong. Then you have Malaysia, especially with the semiconductors, Indonesia, etc. What Philippines has is, as you said, young,
Yes.
talented, English-speaking people. How should Philippines position itself?
Well, at this point, we can't position ourselves as necessarily first mover in the market, right? Since a lot of our neighbors have already done that. But what we can do as early adapters is learn from the best practices in different countries in terms of the policies. What we've learned in terms of digital in the Philippines is when you create the proper framework and policies, it becomes easier for businesses to open in your country and makes you more attractive. We learned this because a lot of our startups in the Philippines actually moved to Singapore because of the the legislation that they have there, which is incentives for tech startups, the speed of ease of doing business. And we're learning from that. And we're trying to see what we can do in the Philippines that might be a bit different, that might make it more exciting. And we're also learning from the frameworks and policies of, like, for example, the EU when it comes to risk management and consumer protection. So we want to make sure that we're learning from everyone, but we're not learning too slow. All businesses are always looking for the next opportunity, a more stable investment climate, a more investor-friendly climate. So that's what we're trying to build. What we noticed before what happened with the whole blockchain craze, and when that happened, there were a lot of businesses that were opening up around the world, and they were looking for regulatory validation. The Philippines was actually one of the first movers in Asia, creating the virtual assets and securities permit. So for a lot of companies that were setting up and wanted to legitimize themselves, the Philippines finally had a regulatory permit that they could avail of. And we saw for the first time an influx of companies from around the world trying to set up in the Philippines. And the one thing that the Philippines did correctly was that the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, in order to adapt to all the fintech that was coming in, decided to create a regulatory sandbox where they wouldn't hinder the growth of these companies, but rather encourage it and study it so that it could make good fiscal policy. So that, in partnership with the virtual assets permit, created this environment that brought in investors. Only problem is pandemic hit. That seriously hurt the progress. But learning from that, now you apply it to the framework that we're trying to build for AI. That's why, unlike other AI frameworks, House Bill 1196, which was the framework bill I filed, yes, it does create our risk categorization from high risk to moderate, etc. But it also creates a department of an artificial intelligence department authority, which basically would allow for a sandbox. It would allow for incentives and a culture of growing these businesses. Because while we do want to regulate for the safety of our consumers and the global consumers, we also don't want to stop businesses, innovation, and entrepreneurs from growing.
This bill that you have put out there, you said it follows a little bit of a risk-based approach, which is
Yes.
like the EU. Now, there are a lot of people, including entrepreneurs in EU, that say EU's gone a little too far in terms of regulation. Is that a little bit of a danger because this technology, Brian, is evolving so very, very fast?
Right.
This agency is going to be like a regulatory agency?
Yes, but I would like to think of it more as a growth promotion agency rather than a regulatory agency.
But isn't there a little bit of a conflict? You have regulation and promotion. Where is that fault line lie in that perspective?
No, I totally understand where you're coming from. But in the same context, government is always the greatest enforcer of rules, but also the greatest source of investment and growth. So in the same sense, we're trying to build that with this regulator. You're right. When you talk about the EU and the current situation in which a lot of companies are taking a second look at the heavy regulation and moving out. But that's why I was saying we're not first mover, but we are early adopter, which means we're looking at what's happening in the EU and we're seeing how in the Philippines, maybe we can dial back on some of the regulation, but the principle of a stratified risk approach towards identifying companies and then speaking to what their obligations would be in terms of that risk profile is a healthy approach. I mean, at the end of the day, one of the reasons why we want to have this is across Asia, there are a lot of cybercrimes that are committed. There are a lot of scams that are ongoing. Deepfake is a global problem. We don't want the Philippines to be a contributor in those fields. We want to signal to the international community that if you're going to do business here, you're going to do it the right way. And if you're going to do it the right way, here are some incentives. That's the way we see it.
How do you decide the high risk categories? Are the foundation companies going to look at this and say, maybe I need to stay away? And the second thing I wanted to ask you was that in terms of, you talk about deep fakes. I notice in your bill, the deep fakes relating to democracy and elections are not mentioned in there. Is there a reason for that?
The two things. On the first, where are we in terms of how we do the categorization? This is an exciting time to be an investor in the Philippines. Because we are in early stages, Congress is still debating that provision. And the thing about the Philippine Congress is we're very open to having the business community as a part of the technical working groups to develop the guidelines and policies for this regulation. So if you're looking at the Philippines as a long-term partner for the growth of your business, it's a good time to come in and give your 2 cents worth on how to grow the industry. The Philippines, well, congressionally, in terms of our legislation, quite unique. We didn't have to put it here because there were so many bills that were filed with regards to troll farms, deep fakes, and so we're actually in the process of consolidating all of them. We're working on the consolidation of the AI framework bill. We are also working on the consolidation of both the troll farms as well as the deepfakes.
You also have another bill which talks about public service and building more IT native talent. Tell our viewers very briefly what that bill is about.
Basically, what we're doing is we're trying to get ahead of the curve. I think it's no secret to a lot of our viewers that the Philippines is a largely BPO-centered economy. And we also know that from numerous reports that the BPO sector will be hit by the advent of AI. But instead of waiting for our economy to take the hit, I wanted to take the initiative and already put in the guidelines for how we can move out. Not necessarily BPO moving out completely, but those at highest risk can be upskilled, can be retrained, and can be given priority to move into another industry already. So let's say you're at the age of 45. Those who are 45 and up would be given priority in terms of the reskilling funding as well as the opportunity to transfer to new businesses. And for large businesses, as part of a community approach to this situation, if your company has more than 100 employees, you're asked by government to give at least 5 slots to those who have been upskilled, retrained, and qualify for a potential position in your company. This is our way to make a, I guess, communal effort towards, I guess, rebuffing the economy and making sure that we don't experience fallout. Because what I don't want is I don't want in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, the government has to create a bailout package. This bill gets ahead of that.
Since you talked about workforce is a very important topic around the world.
Yes.
Specifically related to AI. Has the industry started seeing any impact of AI? Because I can tell you in the US, we are starting to see especially early entry-level jobs are
Yes.
getting impacted because of AI. Has that started happening in Philippines yet?
A bit. We already see how AI is coming in already to take some of the simpler tasks. Of course, it's unavoidable. The reality is, if a guy invented a wheel and you had the ability to have better transportation, are you going to force your entire constituency to continue using horses? Of course not, right? In the same scenario, we can't stop the progression of AI. It's a tool, but we also don't necessarily have to let it destroy the livelihood of our population. So right now, it's in its early stages. Companies are still figuring out how to use it. Most young people, actually, I think about 40-something%, feel that they're not ready yet for their companies to go fully AI. And so we see a gap in the market where government can come in and kind of help a bit to make sure that people are ready for the AI market. Quick answer, BPO starting to feel it a bit, but it's still early, and what we're noticing is an upside. There's now, for new graduates, there are opportunities to specialize. So while you let AI take the basic foundation of what you typically do, you can now focus on specific tasks and be an expert, because at the end of the day, we're still not there yet with the hand-holding from AI to make it feel human all the way. So while that opportunity is still there, we can still take advantage of it.
Well, that's great to hear. Maybe there is a transference of skills. Foundation models now obviously are English-based, and Philippines obviously is English-based.
Yes.
Is there any effort to see if there can be a local AI-driven, AI sovereign AI system in Philippines? Is there
Well-
any talk on that?
Actually, it's a good thing that you brought that up. That's a really important point. We in Congress, in the House, I defended the budget of the Department of Information Communication Technology as its sponsor. We had a big debate on the sovereignty of data. So there is a big push from both private sector and government to start building data centers within the Philippines. And that also speaks towards training localized AI. There is a large chunk of our government budget is going towards the digitalization of government assets. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create AI, but for Filipinos. It's a good thing you brought up the dialects because we have over 70 plus in the Philippines. So we're trying to train the AI to be able to accommodate those languages and dialects. One, to make sure that they don't die out because it's a big part of our culture. But two, so that native users of AI, will be able to use it easily.
Brian, is there an effort to use AI in government services also in terms of how the government interfaces with citizens?
The House of Representatives is doing what it can to digitize, and this is to expedite this paper process, right? And also create a better line of connectivity between constituents and their lawmakers to make it easier for them to interact and to push for transparency. And a lot of the things that we're doing in government, from the filing of bills to the defense of budget, we want the people to be more included in what we're doing in our democracy. And so along with that, we filed a lot of legislation to open up our budget and make sure that technology is a part of that. And there has been a lot of discussion on how AI can maybe expedite the budget process and do away with some of the more menial work.
We started talking about ASEAN. EU put together a comprehensive AI act. Has there been any conversation with ASEAN to have something comprehensive within ASEAN?
Whether or not we're creating a regional framework for AI, I'm not sure if we're there. I personally can't speak towards it. But the Philippines is in an interesting position now because we're chairing the ASEAN.
Yes.
It's not much of a stretch to believe that we would also push in a digital direction for the region because of the need for digital inclusivity.
Yes.
So the ASEAN as a region is, I guess, part of the global south. There are concerns about how AI may actually widen the gap.
Yes.
But there are also very good indicators that AI has the potential to close the gap. So we've seen that in places like India, where AI has been able to pull people out of education poverty. And we're looking at similar projects in the Philippines wherein we'll be able to use AI to address some of the education gaps. And we're also seeing an advent of a lot of young people who are able to become entrepreneurs because of AI technology freeing up so much tasks. I have a friend, she runs a startup company. It's on sustainability, and their company has about 7 human employees. Well, they basically joke and say they have 10 AI employees.
Agents.
Basically, different apps that specialize in whether it's creative, copywriting, etc. But because of the advent of AI, they're able to run their company and be net positive at an early stage. And this is exciting for a young digitally native community, not just in the Philippines, but in ASEAN as a whole.
Yes. Well, that's great to hear. Brian, finally, for our viewers, any perspective on Philippines, the ecosystem, or governance that you would like to leave them with, please?
Well, I would just like to signal to everyone that's viewing here that we are very forward-thinking, that we are studying all the potential industries and policies that could give us a chance to make our country more accommodating to all of you, to come and be a part of our digital revolution.
Brian, to our viewers, Brian is driving a lot of the AI governance and frameworks in Philippines, and a country that's on the move. And it's really interesting to see, especially at Davos, so much happening. It seems it could be called an AI summit in some ways, but really fantastic to have you on the podcast. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for tuning in to the Regulating AI podcast with Sanjay Puri. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought. Share it with someone curious about the future of AI, and join us next time for more stories and insights from the leaders shaping what's ahead. Right here on the Regulating AI podcast.